On my left, Mr. Hennie Hudson, a man who has 26 years experience in the industry. He is a lift inspector himself. Yes, you're welcome. 26 years is a long time, I agree with you. He is with a company called Projitech. He sits on various boards. Sits on boards of SANAS, the Department of Labor, as well as South African Bureau of Standards. He's come through the ranks for one of the multinational companies. He started at the bottom, right up until he became a director of that company. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Mr. Hennie Hudson.
Thanks. Okay. Welcome. Thanks for everybody joining us for this conference. Mr. Jake Malachi, also covering a bit of my presentation. Thank you. We're going to start off. I was asked to present on lift industry overview in South Africa, in particular. Units in South Africa, 45,000 plus minus. These figures are estimated. The reason for that is we've got issues with the Department of Labor with the previous numbers registered, new numbers coming in, and then also when we strip out elevators and replace them with new elevators. A lot of the companies don't deregister the lifts, as Mr. Jake Malachi said. So there's still a problem with the deregistered site. We do put the documents in, but the system is still not ready for that part of it. Plus minus 1,500 units per year. Again, you need to look at new elevators and new buildings and also full replacements, because if you do a full replacement, you still have to put in a registration number for the new lift that you're going to put in. Drivers, private investors, government, rent, full replacements at this stage, because there's a lot of center of town buildings that we are basically revamping now. Also opportunity in the industry. So where we do have an economic issue with when investors do not want to invest that much on a new site, we still have the side where we have to replace elevators in existing buildings. Then China, minus 90% of the lift and escalator equipment now get imported from China. That's even from our multinationals. We still have 4 multinationals in South Africa, which of their equipment also plus minus 90% they bring in from China. Only a couple of local independent companies still have factories, but only contribute to a small margin of the industry, because they also obviously import from China. China compliancy versus EN compliancy. We found basically that even though the equipment coming from China, we've got a couple of issues where they say they do comply with the EN standards, but there's a little bit of a variance when it comes into our country and things that we have to obviously assist with these smaller companies, even some of the multinationals, to basically make sure that they comply to the EN standard. We'll get to it a bit later. So what Mr. Malachi also showed is that SANS 581. So when we adopted the EN standards, that's at 500 is from the SANS side, and then the 81 is the EN side that we've basically adopted. Requirement of South Africa is 20 to 25 years life cycle expectancy. So when we do bring in equipment into the country, this is a requirement we've got for the equipment when you bring equipment in, is that equipment life cycle must be able to carry for the next 20 to 25 years. It's based on not just the age, but the spares availability, technology use, standards, regulations, all those type of things. New installations, upgrades, full replacements. Estimate the new elevator market versus replacement at this stage, and again, it's basically a 65 to 35% split between the two. Maturity of the replacement market, 1970s, most of our CBDs, Johannesburg CBD, Durban, Cape Town, you'll find that these buildings were built in 1970, these high rises, which we are now basically replacing all the elevators. or upgrading. Residential market is a big opportunity, especially again in these CBDs, because we're taking these old buildings where there used to be office blocks and things like this, and then we've got investors that convert them into residential apartments mostly. Full replacements versus upgrade drivers, energy efficiency, best suitable size production line versus flexible sizes, skills, and price. So what we're trying to say here is there is a market obviously in these old buildings, but what we find is the skills within the companies is an issue. So they will rather go and replace the unit than upgrade the unit because of the mixing of the old and the new, getting it together. Then there's also the cost factor of that, because most of the upgrade products that they are bringing in are still from the European country versus the Chinese full replacement. So they'll rather replace than upgrade the units. Best suitable sizes, that comes in with production lines, with globalization. So most of the elevators now has got production lines. And where it's for new buildings, basically the elevator companies now tell you to build a shaft according to their standard production line products. They do still have flexible products, but it's an additional cost. So again, in the full replacement market where it becomes an issue for us, because we've got Party 22 where you have to put a new elevator in an old building, and the lift company is still bringing standard equipment for standard new shafts. Technology driven in the industry at the moment, machine roomless elevators from plus minus 80% of the market. So the MRL products is basically, that's the top market seller at the moment. Technology, VTF drives, energy efficiency, destination control, more on high rise, power issues, Escom and load shedding. Another issue that we need the companies to take in consideration. We do have power issues in South Africa, and frequency drives are very, very sensitive to these situations. So as Chinese suppliers and even the multinationals and everybody supplying to South Africa is to take cognizance of this problem that we do have. We do put a lot of surge protection in these things locally, but it's more on the tender side where we specifically reference to that type of units to be installed. Otherwise, the lift company will bring in this equipment, and then we'll sit with the issue where you've got problems with your drives and things getting damaged. Safety to the users is another driven after technology. Hydraulic technology, not a favorite in South Africa at the moment due to skills and know-how. So most of the elevators, especially in the old days, the hydraulics that we did used to have, we replace them now with traction control elevators. Subcontracting, reference to that is more on the construction and also on the service companies. About 80% of the construction installations these days are done by subcontractors. So the lift companies don't do it internally anymore. They will get a subcontractor that they will get in to install their product. The issue of this is within the companies, we're starting to get skill issues, because the guys getting the basics right of grinding, drilling, and all these type of things is not done anymore because it's now done by an outside company. We're sitting with a lot of companies, even with multinationals, where the technical ability is starting to get from the outside. They have to subcontract it in to assist the lift companies to basically work on the elevator. So skills is a major issue. We've got some apprentices here from Jackie. Thank you very much. And that's part of the issue that we're starting to address in the industry, is to get these guys in and train them to get up to a level where we can actually use them in the industry and do the job creation. Safety installation methodology, issues also with lift companies that we are getting. Some installations they can do with scaffolding, and some companies cannot do it with scaffolding. So we've got these subcontractors that lift companies get in. They used to install for a different company, and they will start using a scaffold-less installation. This is just an example on that product. Not understanding that the elevator needs to be designed and a certain criteria for that elevator to be installed that way. And that's why some of the incidents we get in the industry is where you've got these guys that start installing elevators on a different methodology than what it was designed for to be installed. In-house training In-house training is what also is happening with the subcontractors. A lot of the lift companies, especially the multinationals, are starting to actually train their subcontractors. And they then basically get them to not accredited, but they're competent to install these elevators for these lift companies. So we urge the clients where they do use these installers is to ask them, listen, show us from the installation company where you have done the training and have done the competency to actually be able to install this elevator. Not qualified installers at this stage, that's how the industry is. You do not need a qualified installer to install the elevator. Only a competent by the lift company or whomever. So at this stage, you do not need a qualified lift technician to install. Only needed deemed competent persons, not certified as mentioned. SANS of African National Standards. Mr. Jakes already touched a lot on this. Highlights Part 5 goods access lifts. So we've changed it from the machinery or MR17, the MR17 standard. So you have to have a lift from 2015, needs to comply to Part 5. Part 2, we've got firefighting lift regulations, we've got wind turbines or the wind towers, and then the latest building standards 10400, which we also need to go and check because a lot of changes has happened and that also that affects the lift industry side. OSH Act of 2010, minimum requirement for goods access only lifts installed prior to 2015 to comply with by the year 2020. All goods access only units need to be registered as well. The Annexure Documents 1545 is now part of OSH Act and no longer of SANS. So we used to have it, we did move it over to SANS a couple of years, now it's back into the OSH Act itself. Annexure B 2010 changes now every 24 months intervals. 60 days to get annexure items complete, so that's quite a challenge in the industry at the moment. The inspectors, as soon as they give the inspection or the certificate, the Annexure B, you've got 60 days to comply to get those annexures done. Challenges, new equipment, exemptions and directives. So even though you've got the EN directive and you want to bring in a product into South Africa that's not covered in the standard itself, and you need a directive to make it comply. You need to get the exemption at this stage because we do not accommodate straightforward directives in South Africa. We found this in quite a couple of jobs already where we've got these guys coming in, not just smaller companies, also multinationals, where they got a product from overseas which they then bring into the country with a directive. Just to make sure that you get exemption first before obviously installing that product. Annexure documents, Annexure B, 60 days challenge, new equipment. Skills, we've spoken about skills already. We had an issue in the South African market where we had Cat 3s, which was supposed to be a development process that was supposed to happen. 2010, we changed this regulation because we could see there are issues. And you had to basically now make sure that you've got a qualified lift technician to service or maintain and sign off your maintenance for that month that you needed to do. Due to no more factors in subcontracting, factories. So obviously, we've got in the old days or prior 90s, prior to globalizations, all lift companies used to have their own factories. They used to manufacture most of their own elevators here in the country. So again, a lot of skills that's drained away because now basic skills in the factory, basic skills with the guys, the way they used to install an elevator. Now the new elevators comes more like a Meccano set than actually building an elevator like they used to do in the old days. Maintenance of African service market, 90% comprehensive. Europe market is opposite to that, most European countries. So what it means in South Africa, 90% of our SLA maintenance agreements are full comprehensive maintenance agreements. That means the lift company carries all the risk on that elevator apart from the vandalism and act of God and those things that's without their control. In Europe is the opposite side of that. They've got 90% non-comprehensive. So what the challenge is for the lift companies on this side is basically, especially when it comes to drives and things blowing like that, is now a field engineer can just book out. There's no invoice or exchange of paperwork basically to control that side of the business. In Europe, it's much easier because if there's anything that happens, they put out a quotation, you get an invoice and you pay. That's how it works. Repairs, subcontracting, again, a lot of the companies do their subcontracting, repairs now subcontracted as well. It used to be also internally in the lift companies, again withholding that technical abilities within the lift companies. Now most of them actually subcontract their repairs as well. SLA SOL does not reflect time. That's where we got one of the issues in the industry with maintenance, where a lift SLA do not sell time. What it means is they sell a service. So they will tell you they're going to do these modules of service, and they don't give you a time on how long it takes. So we got a lot of things that they, issues where they sign the books. Yes, the maintenance, they did attend to the site. But on a 20-minute maintenance on a 20-stop building, which is impossible to do. So it's a challenge, and again with the SLAs, we're starting to address this problem as well. Yes, we understand you've got your modules, but also there's a time that we can basically now dictate to you and say, listen, that module will take minimum this part of time to maintain that elevator. So it's something that we are busy addressing within the industry. Modular maintenance, as I discussed already, most lift companies now address their service by doing modular maintenance. They don't do every item every month. They will do specifically to the manufacturer specification and target a specific side of the elevator every month until a cycle is completed. Consultants, use of consultants in industry, advisors to the Department of Labor, obviously with the clients as well. We assist the clients in not just matters on new elevators, SLA, anything to do basically with the elevator industry. New equipment upgrades, SLA management. That is our scope of work. Lift inspectors, bit of change. We used to just register with Engineering Council of South Africa. Now we have to, like Mr. Jake Malachi cleared up already, LIASA, Lift Inspectors Association of South Africa. Then you have to register with SANAS, South African National Accreditation System. We were regulated, expensive, but it's the way to go because this is the way that the industry needs to be handled. And therefore, close. Thank you very much for your time and listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Hennie.